Welcome to the City and County of Swansea Pension Fund Committee meeting. Hope everyone's well. As usual, as Jeremy has intimated, this is a live meeting, or certainly the open part of the agenda is anyway. I don't need to go through protocol with anyone now in terms of being on mute when you're not speaking, and if we can raise hands if we've got access to them on Teams when you want to indicate to speak. And I believe there's 2 name votes that we'll be conducting today, and Jeremy will go through that process as normal. So without further ado, I'll take the first item on the agenda, which is election of vice chair for 2020-21. Can I have nominations?
Phil Downing.
Yeah, I second
that. I'll second that.
Any other nominations? No. Everyone happy that Phil Downing continues as vice chair?
Yeah.
Nobody against? No. Excellent. Thank you, Phil, and look forward to continuing to work with you over the coming year.
Is it usual fee? Is it the usual fee, Phil?
Yeah. Thank you very much for that. That's why I'm dressed the way I am this morning.
Right, okay. So Gareth, could you make sure you go on mute, Gareth?
Pardon?
Can you make sure you go on mute?
Right, okay, sorry.
Sorry. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is apologies for absence.
No apologies, Chair.
No apologies today, so a full house. Excellent. And item 3 then is disclosures of personal and prejudicial interest. So I'll kick off. A member of City and County Swansea Pension Fund. Got Phil first.
Yeah, the usual, like every meeting, my brother is a member of the pension fund.
Jan?
I'm in receipt of a pension from the local government, Clive.
Okay.
Thank you.
Will?
Yeah, member of the fund, yeah.
Pension fund, yeah. Any others, Gareth?
My daughter is a member of the fund, and I'm a member of and in receipt of pension from the former Dublin County Council Pension Fund.
Okay. Any others?
Yes. I'm a
Mike?
member of the pension fund as well. Clive, please. So
Mike Lewis.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Me, Clive. My daughter-in-law is a member of the fund.
Okay, Peter. Yeah.
Okay, I'll email everybody with the forms if you can complete them and then send them back after the meeting.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Item 4 then is to approve the minutes of the last meeting, where they start on page 1. So I'll go through them page by page if anyone can indicate if there are any problems. So I'll start on page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5. Again, could I ask if you all go on mute? Because somebody's dog is barking.
I know. I move the minutes, Clive.
Yeah,
Okay,
second
thanks,
those, Chair.
Seconded. Everyone okay to accept those? Great, thank you. Item 4 then is report of Audit Wales. I believe we've got Jason, is it, attending today to present the report?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good morning.
Jason, welcome.
Thank you. Hope you're all well. Okay, you should have in your pack our report to yourselves as the body charged with governance for the pension fund accounts, entitled Audit of Accounts Report. So if I can just turn you over to the contents page, first of all, and right at the top is our overall heading from the work we've been undertaking over the last couple of months. Very pleasing statement and exactly what you'd like to hear from us, which is we intend to issue an unqualified audit report on your accounts, and there are some matters which I'll go through in the report prior to you approving those accounts in this meeting today. So if I can then turn you over onto the next page, onto page 4 of the report, and just highlight sort of paragraph 4 really. Well, in any statement of accounts, we work to a concept of materiality, which is basically the level of accuracy that we need to work to in relation to any issues we find during the audit. For the pension fund for this current year, that was set at 19.8 million. Our work has been ongoing with Jeff, Karen and the teams over the last couple of months, and obviously it's been a very different way of working, and the next section of the document sort of talks about the impact of COVID-19 on this year's audit. Very much we've all been sort of working from home generally, and we've all been transferring documents electronically rather than perhaps in some manually and whatever. So it has been a different way of working, and I'd like to thank certainly Jeff, Karen and the team in the council for the support during this sort of trying period in getting the audit completed as we have done on time. So there's exhibit 1 just talks about some specifics, when we received the accounts, when the audit's sort of been progressing, and ultimately where we're at currently is that once you approve the accounts today, we'll need a signed copy of those accounts. Electronically is fine with us, and I'll then be going to meet the Auditor General next Tuesday to have the accounts signed with the audit opinion, and then we'll get that final set of accounts sort of back to yourselves. So carrying on through the report then, we've already said that we're going to be given an unqualified sort of audit opinion. The one paragraph I would like to highlight is paragraph 16 in the report. This is consistent with what happened for the main council. Basically, some of your pension fund managers have included what are called material uncertainty clauses in their year-end valuation reports for funds relating to property. Now, what that basically means is, as a result of COVID-19, and the impact of that, they've come to the conclusion there's more uncertainty in the valuation figures they've come up with. So the particular fund that had one of these clauses in it this year was a property fund valued at 51.3 million. So what we have done consistently with all our clients where this has happened this year is we've asked for the clients to include a disclosure in their financial statements highlighting the material uncertainty clause, and note 11 of the pension fund accounts does that. And in our audit opinion, we've put an additional paragraph called an emphasis of matter paragraph. Now, it's still an unqualified audit opinion, but this emphasis of matter paragraph draws the reader's attention to that specific note in the accounts. So I just wanted to talk about that. So going on to the section in the report entitled Significant Issues Arising from the Audit. The first 2 sections, no issues whatsoever. There are no misstatements identified in the financial statements which remain uncorrected. And I'll come on to Appendix 3, which summarises some of the adjustments that were made during the audit, but there was only 1 or 2 of those. So we come on to Exhibit 2 then is the next item I'd like to talk through. And this just highlights some of the sort of more significant issues we encountered during the audit and had to resolve during the process. So I've already sort of talked about the material uncertainty clause. So I won't go into any further detail on that. The next one related to the year-end investment valuations. When the original valuations for the year end were done, they involved a level of estimation for the last period of the March. Now, ultimately, with COVID-19 hitting in March and had a massive impact onto the stock markets at that time, we had to do more work with the actuary to basically assess how reasonable was their estimate. And for those who were involved with the council accounts, you'll remember there were some significant adjustments put through the council accounts relating to the estimates being revised later in the year as a result of the COVID-19. So when we had the draft statement of accounts for the pension fund in September, these adjustments had already been put through, so they were corrected. So there was no further adjustments to be made, but it was a piece of work we had to talk through and work through. The third one relates to the MacLeod pension remedy, which is basically a judgment that has gone on in the legal courts over the last few years in relation to an inequity in pension provision based on age discrimination. And there's been a case which is the government lost. And as a result, individual pension funds have been trying to estimate the potential liability as a result of this inequity in pension provision. Now, when the accounts were produced earlier in the year, the actuary had come up with an estimate for the liability. But in July, the government had proposed what its remedy for that loss of case was. And what we had to do is to go back to the individual actuaries and assess, now that you know what you know, based on the government remedy, would that have a significant impact on what you've estimated to be the liability? And thankfully, working with Aon Hewitt, what they had included in their estimate as the liability was reasonably consistent with what the government was proposing as a remedy. But so as a result, there were no adjustments required to the financial statements for that. So coming then on, you've got then 3 appendices. The first appendix is a template, what's called letter of representation. This is now a series of disclosures we ask the pension fund to make to us in order to sort of complete the audit. And as part of the pack of information we get back, we will require this letter of representation, signed and presented to us. The next appendix is purely the wording of our audit opinion, which will be inserted into your final version of the accounts. And again, that's what ultimately will be signed by the Auditor General when I meet him next week. And in that, just to highlight what we just talked about, you will see on the top of page 13 of the report, the additional paragraph I referred to being the emphasis of matter paragraph, which draws attention to note 11 of the financial statements. And then you've got in appendix 3, the summary of some of the amendments made during the year, and ultimately there's only one particularly highlighted there, which was purely an arithmetic type error, really, in the fact that one of the contributions with University of Wales Trinity St David had not been included, but it had been included in the total, so it didn't impact anything other than the particular note. And as in any audit, we'd find some other amendments of a more minor nature that would be made, but those don't need to be drawn to your attention individually. So that's all I have to say, Chair. I'm more than happy to take any questions members have.
Excellent, thank you, Jason. I think we touched on this yesterday, didn't we, in the consultative meeting, but I think those accounts represent an outstanding achievement, to be perfectly honest with you. As Jason has outlined, we all know how difficult it has been to do or conduct this sort of audit and prepare the accounts in the COVID world of remote working. And again, a massive thank you for the record to Jeff, to Karen particularly, and the team for all the work they've done in not only getting the accounts in an outstanding state, but sticking to the timetable as well. And I think, Jeff, I'm right in saying that a number of pension and administrative authorities have struggled to meet that timetable. So it's no mean feat and a good achievement. So, and thank you, Jason, for those for the report and the presentation of it this morning. Are there any questions for Jason? Jeff?
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to reciprocate, Chairman, the thanks that Jason gave to the authority and myself and Karen. As you recognise, it was a difficult period to undertake the audit of the accounts, and Audit Wales are very pragmatic and flexible and nimble in amending the way they work, and I think it was greatly appreciated. I think as a departure from their normal way of working, whereby they normally get us into a dark room and shine a light into your eyes and put the thumb screws on. that I greatly appreciated giving that a miss this year, Chairman. So yeah, hopefully this is a welcome development for future audits. But no, jokes aside, yeah, it worked well in the circumstances, and I want to say thanks to Audit Wales and Andrea. I think it was on the line, who works very closely with Karen to audit the accounts as well. Yeah, just wanted that on public record as well, Chairman. Thank you.
When we resume to normal, we'll invite Amnesty International along as well, just to keep an eye on things.
Yes.
Any other questions for Jason? No?
Chair, do you want to formally approve the account?
All right. Yeah, of course.
Sorry.
Yeah. So, do you want to take a name vote for this one?
Yes, I can do.
Yeah.
Do you want to move her first, Clive? Because I'll move them if you want a new mover.
Yeah. So John has moved it. The accounts. Anyone seconder?
Seconded.
Yeah. Thanks, Peter. Okay, Jeremy, over to you.
Okay, Councillor John Curtis.
Move.
Councillor Phil Downing. Councillor Phil Downing.
That white shirt and tie has gone to his head. He can't.
You there, Phil? I'll come back to him. Councillor Mike Lewis.
Approve.
Councillor Gareth Sullivan.
Approve.
Councillor Will Thomas.
Approve.
Councillor Peter Rees.
Approve.
And Councillor Clive Lloyd.
Approve. Have we done? Did you do Mike?
Yes.
Yeah, done Mike. Too.
Yeah. Only Phil. I couldn't see. Phil didn't come back. That's the only. Are you there, Phil?
On a toilet break.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Thanks again, Jason, for that, and we look forward to working with you over the coming months on next year's accounts.
No problem. Thank you, Chair. We'll leave you in peace now, and so I'll liaise with Jeff after the meeting around getting the electronic documents, and obviously we'll get everything done this end early next week and get them back to you.
Excellent. Thank you again.
Okay, take care.
Thanks
Okay.
all. Bye.
Bye. We move on to section 6 then, which item A, which is breaches report on page 24. So Jeff, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Thank you, Chairman. Not intending to spend a great deal of time. It's this usual report highlighting the breaches which we're required to report to you in line with the pensions regulators' guidance. We are reporting to you in the appendix the breaches that were identified, and as you're aware, these are technical breaches, and I know the term breaches quite emotive in what it informs to the reader. However, these are technical breaches whereby we haven't quite met the standards outlined, etc., in respect of contributions received and timescales for making certain payments within the regulation. You're well used to what they are, what the issues are for those breaches, so no intention of going into detail. But from page 40 of your documents onwards, you can see the new breaches identified since the last time you met. And again, they're the well-worn ones in terms of lump sum payments made within the required timescale, contributions received, and as you can see there, in respect of the GDPR breaches. Again, this is a new breach that we report to you on a voluntary basis. Almost, it's not required in the regulations, but we thought it was good practice to report to you any GDPR breaches in this report as well. You can see there have been no GDPR breaches in the period. Happy to answer any queries, Chairman.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Yeah, as Jeff said, this is our standard sort of technical report. Has anyone got any questions for Jeff?
No, who you are? Am I back in now?
Yeah.
I could hear everything. I turned my mic off, but nobody could hear me. So I'm back now on a different device.
All right. Okay, thanks, Phil, anyway. So that report is for information only then. So if we move then to 6B, which is pension administrations and the review of the pension section administration resourcing, page 43. Jeff, over to you again.
Thank you, Chairman. I think Audit Wales and Jason Garcia mentioned and referenced a lot of the rationale behind this report in his indication that the government had lost their case in respect of McLeod, and they've have started working on a potential remedy. That is still being worked through, and operationally, the impact of that is still uncertain. However, what we do know, and again, working with our actuaries, is that it will impact on the pension administration side of the business in a very material way. Just so far as you can see in the report, the analysis of potential affected members is something in the region of like 8,000 members. So in essence, those records have to be evaluated, appraised, and then there's a degree of discretion upon the member on what they decide to do. So there has to be some communication with the member themselves and options that they need to elect to implement the satisfactory remedy. So as you can imagine, doing that with 7,500, 8,000 cases is quite onerous. And also the report sets out a whole load of other challenges, obviously, that the pension fund faces and could potentially require additional resource in respect of. Again, there's a paper later on the agenda about exit reform. Obviously, remedies for that aren't in place as yet, and it's not certain that will be implemented. However, there is again a pension admin impact of that regulation coming into force. In speaking to the actuary who has analysed that data and the impact, we've and again, looking across the rest of the LGPS in terms of their resourcing and what our peers in the remaining are thinking about upskilling and up-resourcing for this challenge going forward. You can see there's been degree of horizon scanning at section
5.7, I think it is, Jeff.
Thank you, Clive. Just have to scan down at 5.7 of the report, which indicates what other authorities are thinking about doing and similar sized organisations. So in short, this report is asking on a temporary basis while we address the McLeod remedy, some additional resourcing to the tune of 4 FTEs, and that's outlined in 5.5. Again, brutal and frank, it's as unscientific as we've been able to do. Slightly better than a finger in the air job in terms of, are these appropriate? Are these enough staff to address the issue properly? Just anecdotally, and I don't think the Section 151 officer will mind me mentioning it, because it's on public record that the Section 151 officer was appointed from a different local authority in England, and obviously he is determined to leave a deferred pension there. He will get caught up in this McLeod remedy, and even his situation in our casual discussions about it has about 5 or 6 permutations, and there is no optimal solution for him at a point in time to implement in respect of McLeod. So if that's just one case, and someone of his technical acumen who can appreciate the considerations that he has to make in respect of the McLeod remedy, think about it in respect of an ordinary, perhaps not so technically knowledgeable member of the LGPS who has to make similar considerations. So it's not an inconsiderable bit of work. It's still at early stages, but we want to get on the front foot and get the approvals in place to resource the section adequately. And this ask is for those 4 FTEs on a temporary basis for the period of 2 years. Obviously, we reserve the right to come back to committee if those aren't enough, and noting my comments just now, or similarly say to you, no, it's been a walk in the park, and perhaps we are over resourced in that regard. We also have in our back pocket work that's ongoing with our software providers, Haywoods, that perhaps they may come up with a magic bullet, a silver bullet solution from a software technological remedy to this, but I suspect not, because of the degree of discretion, decision making options that the individual member has to make to implement a remedy in this regard. So happy to take further questions, Chairman.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Yeah, so obviously Jeff has made the recommendation. I mean, this seems completely reasonable to me, given that this is a UK-wide declaration from the High Court. It affects all pension funds, and I can say categorically that all pension funds are planning around similar veins in dealing with what may be some very complex cases that may come to light as a result of this judgment. Also, as Jeff alluded to later, we'll talk about the and the implications that potentially could have on wills, but that will unfold as different challenges are realised, I guess. So, and again, I think in the paragraph that Jeff alluded to, 5.7, even with this additional resource, I don't think we're anywhere near out of kilter with some of the other pension funds in Wales. Far from it. There'll always be work as well, Jeff, in terms of data cleansing, won't there, that administrative staff could be involved in. So this could be a real opportunity to attack both McLeod exit caps and continue the good work we've done on data cleansing. So any questions for Jeff on this one? So it's just for clarity, it's 4 additional posts, 2 pension officers, 2 assistant pension officers for an initial term of 2 years. That we don't. So okay, if there's no questions, the recommendation then is on get back there on page 43, and that is resourcing proposals outlined in 5.5 and the associated financial implications, and a deputy section 151 officer pension manager be authorised to implement immediately. So we'll go to a name vote on this one, Jeremy, I believe.
Okay, yes. Councillor John Curtis.
Approve.
Councillor Phil Downing.
Approve.
Councillor Mike Lewis.
Yes, approve.
Councillor Gareth Sullivan.
Agree.
Councillor Will Thomas.
Approve.
Councillor Peter Rees.
Approve.
And Councillor Clive Lloyd.
Approve.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy, and thanks to committee. So there we are. That's approved. Next item then is 6C, which is just alluded to, exit payment reform and response to UK government consultation, page 53 to 54. Jeff?
Thank you, Chairman. Before we start, Chairman, and go into the detail of the report, can I just make an apology, and both yourselves and Jeremy, in that the recommendation there it asks the Pension Fund Committee to approve the response. Because of the timescales, obviously, those of you with eagle eyes will notice that the consultation that did actually close on Monday the 9th to that consultation, and with the approval of the chair of the committee, who signed off the appendix to the response to the consultation at Appendix 2, that has already been submitted within the timetable. So I'm afraid, Jeremy, if the recommendation could be amended to that the Pension Fund Committee approves retrospectively the response the response to government consultation and exit reform, just because of the timing of it. It had to go off last Monday.
Okay.
Just by way of background, Chairman and committee members, as you remember, there was a lot of publicity about the 95k cap coming into force in respect of exit payments in the public sector. That's just to remind you, I think there were quite a number of controversial exits following what can be perceived as underperformance or basically doing their jobs very poorly at very senior levels in councils and public sector organisations in England. I think the most high-profile one was a social services director in London, following a quite high-profile incident in social care in London, as you recall. So, following that, I think it was a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to that, in saying this wasn't on, and the government response was to implement this 95k cap on exit payments. During quite a convoluted and lengthy period, consultation, etc., that has actually come into force now as of 4th of November. Following closely on the heels of that piece of regulation coming into force, MHCLG have issued consultation on further exit reform, which is indicated in section 3 of the report, which seeks consultation to further reform exit in the LGPS in specific, and then it talks about limits in terms of final pay limits in severance calculations of £80,000, maximum severance to be 3 weeks of pay or 15 months of pay, whichever is lower, and no severance will be payable if the member receives immediate pension repayment by the employer to cover the cost of early release of pension. So notionally, it's a way of capping the costs of exit in the LGPS. But just to remind committee members, the LGPS is different in respect of comparison with other public sector schemes, in that it's the only funded scheme in the public sector. All other public sector schemes, all of them, bar the very small MPs scheme, they're all unfunded scheme. They're all pay as you go, pay on the drip scheme. So the LGPS is the only funded scheme in respect of that. Open, transparent. Whenever an ER/VR case is approved by an employer, there is an equal and opposite charge raised to that employer in respect of giving that member early access to their scheme. There is a cost to those decisions, and that cost is communicated to the employer upfront, and the expectation is that the pension fund receives that cost upfront before that member goes. However, in the other public sector schemes, this is all, it's not transparent. That process does not take that into account. So, in this consideration of exit caps for LGPS, we stand alone in pension strain costs included in any of those considerations, and I suppose that's why I think the response to both sets of consultation, both the 95k cap and this further exit reform, has been so strong and vocal in LGPS, in that it unfairly impacts LGPS workers as opposed to their fellow public sector workers and the rest of the public sector. So that's the rationale of the quite strong response that we've submitted, and that is echoed throughout the LGPS and throughout with our colleagues, not only throughout in Wales but throughout the UK. In respect of this, the exit reform that's before you today, the response to the consultation there, as you can see in the report already, my colleagues in the legal departments in local authorities have already submitted a pre-action protocol notice letter to the MHCLG, and that's identified at part 6 of the report, whereby they've already lodged with the MHCLG their proposal to submit a request for a judicial review into those exit reform regulations. Not only the timing of them, it's quite a technical letter where they've outlined their objections to the reform regulations, but not least of which, you know, it's due process, you know, almost, you know, by accident they will have to be implemented now, ahead of consultation closing. So it's you know, a bit of a mess, and I think most people do recognise that you know, it hasn't been handled in the best way, and they've almost tried to rush through the exit reform cap, the exit reform proposals in line with the implementation of the 95k cap, and separate but connected. Obviously, the 95k cap, as I say, came into being on the 4th of November, but at 6.2 of the report, and I think it was referenced yesterday by the actuary in his presentation, Welsh Government is considering implementing its implementing and exercising its rights and the devolution to exercise its rights in this regard. And considering ignoring pension strain costs in that 95k cap calculation. So they're taking legal advice at the moment in respect of that. But that would be a way to ensure parity across the public sector in Wales in any case, and there is precedent of Welsh Government, you know, invoking their devolved powers in matters of the LGPS, because as members, as identified by the members when they declared their interest, you know, lots of the members sitting on this committee are members of the LGPS, and as you recall, in 2014, regulations came into being from Westminster that elected members, councillors, were no longer allowed to be members of the LGPS. However, in 2014, Welsh Government implemented and used their rights and under devolved powers to say no. In Wales, elected members will still be allowed to be members of the LGPS. So there is precedent for them successfully implementing discretions in that regard. So we watch this space in terms of the 95k cap rule is concerned. However, it is in operation now. So in effect, if anyone is in breach of that, they will have their benefits capped now from so the administrating authority is in the invidious position of either giving them unreduced benefits and breaking the law ostensibly, or implementing the cap and ahead of the potential remedy that the Welsh Government remedy offers. So it's a bit of an invidious position that admin authorities find themselves in. There is some degree of guidance that's come out from Scheme Advisory Board on how to proceed. However, there's a degree of risk either on the employer or if we don't take on that risk, risk on the admin authority, and if we don't take on that risk and pass the risk on to the member, we stand at risk of legal challenge from the member in due course. So at the moment, we've communicated with our employers, and obviously we've been signalling to them when this was going to come into force on the 4th of November. And obviously they've been managing their exits who might be impacted by this regulation actively. So hopefully none are going to be impacted adversely until we get some successful resolution with how to take this forward. So I know our chairman sits on the Scheme Advisory Board. He's the Welsh representative at the Scheme Advisory Board, which advises government on the LGPS, and I know they've been in very close dialogue with MHCLG and Treasury in respect of this. But so the chairman may have additional flavour to add, because obviously it's a rapidly moving piece of work and area that everyone has a great deal of interest in. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Well, thanks for the comments. I think this is a completely unnecessary and untimely piece of legislation. The origins of this goes back, notwithstanding the example that Jeff gave about public sector workers retiring for poor performance on big lump sums. This is purely political. That has been around the time since the 2010 election, really, when if you read Daily Mail week on week, the public sector was being demonised, that it's as the people that were getting paid too much, and everyone was on a gold-plated pension, and it's a purely political ploy to as an attack on public sector pensions. And as Jeff has intimated, the unintended consequence of that is that the LGPS seems to be adversely affected as compared to other pensions, public sector pension schemes, just by the nature of it being a fully funded scheme. So the £95,000 as a figure as well has been around since 2010. So there's been no, even if it was going to be introduced, there's been no allowance for inflation. So £95,000 in 2010, 2011, when this was first proposed, is not worth £95,000 now. And I know that there is an impact on members' pension plans, people who were thinking of retiring early and working that out to a time that was suitable for them, now have to rethink those plans. And I think Jeff is right. This has got a bit to run yet in terms of legal challenge, Jeff, certainly from what I'm hearing via the Scheme Advisory Board, where individuals will be taking potential action against the administrative authorities or UK government. As Jeff has alluded to, the one saving grace is that although local government is devolved in Wales, pensions isn't, as we know, but there is this attempt by Welsh government to really push back on what is an attack on really hard-working, the majority hard-working public sector workers who have worked a long time in the service, stopping them from giving the pension that they worked hard for in the vast majority of cases. So again, we've had to send off the response in lieu of the timetable that we were working against. So again, apologies to the committee of that, but I did agree with Jeff on committee's behalf. But if there's any other questions that anybody would like to ask of Jeff on this particular issue, as I said, the timing couldn't have been any worse, and it was a bit of one that's been hanging around for a number of years, and out of the blue that it got on the UK government order paper to implement without not a huge amount of notice, I have to say. Any questions for Jeff? No.
Hi, Clive. Could I just add? Sorry, Chairman. Could I just add? You reminded me in your comments there, Chairman, that obviously this 95k cap conjures up images of obviously fat cat salaries, etc., and highly paid. But in the calculations, not only for the 95k cap, but the subsequent exit reform, it bites at a very low level. I mean, in respect to the exit reform, we've got a number of cases where Claire Elliott, our pension manager, was looking at where those regulations bite, and they bite at school dinner time supervisor level. If they have a degree at number of years service, it starts biting, and they're going to have to make very serious decisions about whether to forego accrued benefit and have the redundancy that they're entitled to. So don't forget, this is in respect of when these individuals have been made redundant, albeit on a voluntary basis or a compulsory basis, but they have been made redundant in these situations. So they do bite at very modest levels in the pay structure. I know that those figures bandied about £80,000, £95,000 do conjure up images of it only affecting the chief execs and the directors levels, but no, the way they work, they bite at very, very, very low levels of the pay structure. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Thanks for the clarification of that. So, okay, if there's no questions for Jeff, what are we voting for? Yeah, do we just have to, in retrospectively, agree it, Jeremy? Is it?
Yes, Chair.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to go with the name vote then?
Yeah. Councillor John Curtis.
Approve.
Councillor Phil Downing.
Agree.
Councillor Mike Lewis.
Approve.
Councillor Gareth Sullivan.
Approve.
Councillor Will Thomas.
Yes, approve.
Councillor Peter Rees.
Approve.
And Councillor Clive Lloyd.
Approve.
Thank you.
Thanks again for that.
You're on mute.
You're on mute, Chair.
We move to item 7. I knew I'd do it. Item 7, which is exclusion of the public. Somebody like to move that?
Move, Chair.
Jan? Yeah. Everyone okay with that?
Second.
Yeah, second, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so can we turn the recording off now, Jeremy? You're on mute.
There we are. I shall turn the recording off and the live feed has stopped. Thank you.